This is a picture of my family of origin, the people I grew up with. My parents took great pride in teaching and providing us with principles to live by. Dr. Arnold, Family Communication, stated that our parents and adult caregivers communicate with us what is acceptable behaviors and what is not. My parents stressed the importance of education and work ethic. They were able to teach and guide us through symbolic interaction. Symbolic interaction states that through interactions with others, we are able to reach an understanding of concepts, people, and things. These interactions also help us to identify with specific roles within the family. Tetra is the oldest child. Lehman, the author of The Birth Order, described her personality perfectly, stating that the oldest child prefers to know what is happening and when. They thrive on being in control, on time, and organized. After living with her for 2 years, I realized how precise and organized she is. According to Lehman, the firstborn received the brunt of discipline while the youngest get away with murder. This helps to explain why she felt like Cinderella growing up. She has always complained about having to do housework when my brother and I get to play. She is 7 years older than us, and she became another caregiver for us. My parents relied on her to watch us after school. Rodney, the only boy and the middle child. Lehman discusses how the middle children grow up to be tenacious adults because they are used to life being unfair, that they tend to have lower expectations and are more accepting in relationships. Rodney, the middle child, tends to have longer and stronger relationships than me and my sister. When we have family disagreements, Rodney plays the role of the peacemaker and mediator. Lehman also discusses the mysteriousness of the middle child. My family never knows what my brother is thinking or planning. This is a mixture of Rodney's biological family and family of origin. Rodney was adopted at 6 months. His biological parents were teenagers and could not afford to take care of him. So my parents, who were having trouble with fertility, decided to adopt him. That same week, my mom found out she was pregnant with me. We ended up being 6 months apart and were raised like twins. My parents were always open with us about him being adopted. Holman Jones discusses the importance of adoption stories in her article, Mothering Loss. These stories help to partuent, which is bringing forth openness, bridging the gap between the separate families. This is my parents pre-divorce. When I was 16, my parents separated. We continued living in the same house, but they slept in separate bedrooms. While it was awkward at times, I'm happy that my parents decided to continue living together until I went to college, making the divorce process easier to cope with. Arnold discusses how divorces are complex and can vary in results. She also discusses how suddenness of divorce and post-divorce communication can affect the family. The divorce process in my family was gradual, and it wasn't official until I was 20. We all lived separate at the time, so there was no real effect on my day-to-day life. The problems with the divorce did not arise until the first Thanksgiving and Christmas. After the divorce, my family had issues with deciding where to spend the holidays and how to spend equal time with each parent. Both of my parents quickly entered into new relationships. Neither are married, but they are in stable relationships, forcing my siblings and I to accept their significant other. Arnold discusses the blended family and how social penetration helps with forming new relationships. When making decisions about holidays, the concept of power has a major effect on the final decision. My mother has always had more power than my dad, giving her the advantage over my dad when deciding how to celebrate holidays. Segrin and Flora discuss power in decision-making, stating that powerful family members have more influence over decision-making. This is my mother's father. He was one of the first Black Marines and received the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor in Washington, D.C. in 2011. My grandfather has also been published in multiple books about being one of the first Black Marines. telling his story about how bad it was for African Americans in the Marines in the early 1940s. He always tells us the story about being locked in the barracks with only bread and water, for trying to push his white commanding officer overboard. The commanding officer kept hitting my grandfather, so he pushed him. My grandfather told this story to show us that racism is real and that he lived through it, reminding us about the different social movements that African Americans were a part of. Turner and West, 2010, discussed the effects of social movements in the family communication. These stories will continue to be passed down from generation to generation. Although my grandfather has always been open with me, he has started to tell me secrets. Paulos, author of Accidental Ethnography, discusses how sometimes it's okay for secrets to come to light. I think he's telling me these things now so he won't die without us knowing. This is a picture of me and my grandfather taking selfies in the car. At times he drives me crazy, but he has always been there for me, whether to offer advice or to just listen to me. Our notes discuss grandparent relationships as loving role models who offer unconditional acceptance. Recently, he's been driving my family crazy because he won't stop driving. My grandfather cannot turn his neck to see from side to side, so it is unsafe for him to be driving. I have granddaddy issues, which causes issues within the family. Lowe, author of Daddy Issues 2012, discussed the stress of aging parents and the children. This leads to arguments and disagreements amongst the children. This is a picture of me and my best friend Morgan. We have been friends since we were 1. My aunt is married to her uncle, so we have always been around each other. I consider her a sister and a part of my family. Our notes discusses the personal family, who don't have to be blood or legally related. Morgan is a part of my personal family because she has always supported and pushed me to want more. Our notes describes this type of personal relationship as fictive kin. Last, but certainly not least, it's me. I'm the baby, or the last born of my family. As a child, I was always the center of attention. If it wasn't for making people laugh, it was for getting in trouble. I was spoiled and used to always getting my way. Growing up, I was always compared to my older brother and sister. Lehman discusses how the last born are used to being put down and written off. I'm still competing with my siblings to see who can get the better job and who has the highest degree. The need I have to surpass my siblings in education is a direct correlation as to why I am single. I've been single for the past 4 years. I've noticed that the more educated I become, the lower my need for marriage becomes. Bola, author of All the Single Ladies, discusses how women no longer need men or husbands to have children. She also discusses how women's needs to be married and have children continue to become less important.